Your Greatest Ally, The Subconscious Mind. A work created by Oscar Gonzalez and produced by Biblio Studio. Chapter 1. The Hidden Map of Your Mind. What you don't see but still guides your life. If someone asked you to draw a map of your mind, you would probably start with what you know. Your thoughts, your clearest memories, the conscious decisions you make every day. Those are the main streets, well lit, where you move around with ease. But if you expanded the map, you would soon notice that the largest areas are not so well marked. There are underground passages, invisible highways, and dark tunnels that don't appear in your usual routes, though they are the ones truly controlling the traffic of your life. That is your subconscious, the vast territory you rarely look at directly, yet it organizes most of your movements. To understand the magnitude of this hidden map, just look at something as simple as your breathing. Right now, without you intending it, your chest rises and falls, your lungs take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide, and your heart beats at a rhythm that sustains your existence. You didn't have to remember to do it, nor mentally program each inhalation. Your subconscious keeps that machinery running. And the curious thing is that it does the same with most of your thoughts, reactions, and emotions, even though it may seem like you, consciously, are the one deciding. The subconscious is, in essence, life's autopilot. If you had to think about every movement of your hands while buttoning your shirt, every step you take going down a staircase, or every word you choose while speaking, you would have no capacity left for anything else. You need an invisible system to carry out most of those tasks for you. That system, silent yet powerful, is the foundation on which your conscious self rests. However, this autopilot is not neutral. It records experiences, beliefs, and emotions and turns them into programs that play over and over. Think, for example, of someone who, as a child, learned to fear dogs after being bitten once. Even if they no longer remember the episode clearly, their subconscious stored it as a warning. Dog equals danger. As an adult, although they may rationally understand that the dog in front of them is harmless, their body will still react with tension, sweat, or fear. Their inner map dictates the path, even when the external reality says otherwise. What's fascinating is that the same mechanism that sometimes limits us can also propel us forward. A belief imprinted deep in the mind can become the spark of a transformed life. And here we encounter something surprising. The subconscious doesn't make much of a distinction between what is real and what is imagined. For it, an emotion intensely lived in thought can carry the same weight as a tangible experience. That's why, when you visualize a goal in detail, your subconscious interprets it as a possible reality and begins to reorganize internal resources to achieve it. Throughout history, different cultures have intuited this truth. The ancient Greeks, for example, believed that dreams were divine messages, a bridge through which the hidden communicated with the visible. Even if their explanation was mythological, they understood that there was a secret passage between the conscious and the unconscious. Today, we know that in dreams, your subconscious mixes memories, emotions, and symbols to process what your rational mind cannot organize. Let me share a story that illustrates how this hidden map shows up in real life. In the late 19th century, a German chemist named August Kekulé spent years trying to uncover the structure of benzene, a problem that seemed unsolvable. One night, he dreamed of a snake biting its own tail. Upon waking, he realized that the image represented a ring, and he discovered that the benzene molecule had a circular structure. Kekulé didn't solve the mystery at his conscious desk, but in the secret corridors of his subconscious. That is the power of what we don't see. While you think you are straining your mind, a much larger part of you is connecting threads, exploring paths, combining memories, and generating insights. Sometimes you sense it as a hunch, other times as an idea that suddenly appears, or as a repeated mistake that seems to come from nowhere. In every case, the explanation is the same. Your inner map is at work. Now, this map is not fixed. Although much of it is drawn in childhood through what we live, hear, and feel, it is constantly being updated. Every experience, every repeated word, every sustained emotion leaves an imprint on the subconscious. It's as if each action dropped a bit of ink onto an invisible canvas, and over time that ink formed patterns that shape the way you think, feel, and act. What we call character, luck, or destiny is nothing more than the accumulation of those strokes. What's impressive is that, despite how automatic it seems, the map can be redrawn, sometimes slowly through practice and repetition, other times through intense experiences that leave a deep mark. Think of someone who overcomes a major personal challenge, like learning to walk again after an accident, and afterward feels their entire life has taken on new meaning. The subconscious records not only the action, but also the emotion attached to it, and it reconfigures the inner pathways. That's why it is so important to pay attention to what you constantly introduce into your mind. The phrases you repeat, the images you consume, the thoughts you nurture, all are the materials with which your subconscious builds realities. And while you can't control every impression you receive, you can choose what you surround yourself with, what you reinforce, and what you decide to let go. At this point, you may begin to notice that your life is more guided by that hidden map than you thought. But it's not about seeing it as an invisible prison, but as a tool, like a friend who doesn't always know how to express themselves, but who, once you learn to understand them, becomes your greatest ally. Carl Jung left us a phrase that captures a powerful truth. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, the subconscious will continue to direct your life, and you will call it fate. This statement, as simple as it is profound, reminds us that the power lies not in denying the hidden, but in learning to recognize it, explore it, and little by little transform it. This is just the first glimpse into that vast territory. In the chapters ahead, we will walk deeper through its corridors, explore how brilliant minds studied it, how it influences our emotions, decisions, and dreams, and, above all, how you can make it your greatest ally. Chapter 2. Freud, Eagleman, and Murphy, three perspectives that reveal the same mystery. To truly understand your subconscious, it's worth pausing on three voices which, though separated by time and approach, converge on the same truth. Much of who we are takes place outside the control of the conscious mind. Freud, Eagleman, and Murphy represent three different ways of looking at the same phenomenon. The first, through the lens of early psychology, the second, with the precision of modern neuroscience, and the third, with the practical and almost spiritual vision of the creative power of thought. Let's begin with Freud. Imagine the context in which he lived, the late 19th century, a world that trusted blindly in reason, in positive science, in what was visible. Freud had the audacity to claim that beneath this rational surface lay another force, far greater and far more decisive, the unconscious. His work, The Interpretation of Dreams, was an intellectual earthquake because he argued that dreams were not whimsical mental episodes or simple nighttime anecdotes, but symbolic expressions of hidden desires and conflicts. In other words, what was left unsaid by day was shouted in code during the night. With Freud, the unconscious became the stage of repressed drives, buried memories, and disguised desires. His view was clinical. He treated patients and saw how what they withheld during waking hours emerged distorted in symptoms, phobias, and dreams. Hence his insistence that understanding those manifestations was key to healing. Although many of his concepts have since been questioned, the essence remains. What we ignore about ourselves influences us far more than we think. Jump a century forward and we meet David Eagleman, a neuroscientist who reminds us that, although we may feel like the owners of our decisions, we are merely late witnesses to a vast amount of brain work happening in the shadows. In his book Incognito, he explains how most of our choices, thoughts, and reactions are governed by neural networks that function without asking our consciousness for permission. One example Eagleman shares is particularly revealing. In experiments, men felt more attracted to photographs of women with dilated pupils, yet none of them could explain why. Their brains had made the connection, dilated pupils equals sexual arousal, without their awareness. The conclusion is clear. Much of what we consider my tastes, my judgment, or my intuition are programs inscribed in neural circuits forged by evolution. Eagleman uses a very vivid metaphor. Consciousness is like the headline of a newspaper, short and summarized, while everything that happens behind the scenes, the factories, the negotiations, the social movements, unfolds without the reader ever knowing. Our conscious mind receives only the executive summary, not the full process. This vision coincides with what Freud had intuited, but now backed by empirical evidence, brain scans, laboratory experiments, and behavioral studies. Now, if Freud looked at the unconscious as a territory of repressed conflicts, and Eagleman studies it as a system of automatic circuits, Joseph Murphy approaches it from a different angle, the creative power of the subconscious in daily life. In his book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, often translated as Your Subconscious Friend, he insists that whatever we plant in that fertile soil, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, becomes reality. For Murphy, the subconscious does not argue or reason. It simply executes. If you feed it negative ideas, you will attract negative experiences. If you impregnate it with conviction and faith, it will produce positive results. What's interesting about Murphy is that he takes the concept of the unconscious out of clinics and laboratories and brings it into the practical terrain of everyday life. He doesn't speak of hidden traumas or neural connections, but of how to use affirmations, visualizations, and beliefs to influence your destiny. And although some may see him as overly optimistic, the truth is that his teachings have helped millions of people discover that they are not mere victims of circumstance, but active participants in the creation of their experience. What's fascinating emerges when we bring these three perspectives together. Freud tells us, your repressed desires and buried memories speak through your dreams and symptoms. Eagleman responds, your neural circuits have been making decisions long before you. And Murphy completes the picture. Your thoughts are seeds that your subconscious turns into fruits, for better or for worse. Three different perspectives, one message. You are not only what you think consciously. It might seem like these views clash, but in reality, they complement each other. Freud highlights the psychological dimension, Eagleman, the biological, Murphy, the practical and existential. All converge on one essential idea. The conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. What happens beneath the surface, whether repressed drive, neural connection, or ingrained belief, largely defines the course of your life. Here I'd like to share a lesser-known anecdote about Thomas Edison, the famous inventor. It is said that, when faced with a difficult problem, he would sit in a chair holding a steel ball in his hand and allow himself to drift into sleep. As he dozed off, the ball would fall to the floor, waking him up. And at that moment between sleep and wakefulness, the intuition he needed would often arrive. Edison was not being mystical, but strategic. He sought to activate that frontier where the subconscious works freely. This habit, unintentionally, embodied the union of what Freud, Eagleman, and Murphy each pointed out from different angles. The lesson we can draw is clear. Your subconscious is not just a passive storehouse of memories, nor merely an automatic circuit, nor solely a creative engine. It is all of these at once. It is the emotional memory you carry from childhood, the biological system that reacts before you do, and the fertile soil in which you can plant new beliefs. Understanding it through these three lenses expands your mental map. It helps you recognize that you are neither a slave to your past, nor a programmed robot, nor a magician with absolute power, but someone who can learn to collaborate with this hidden ally. Imagine three explorers arriving at the same continent through different routes. One describes the mountains, another the rivers, and another the fertile plains. None of them is lying. Each saw an aspect of the same land. The same happens with Freud, Eagleman, and Murphy. They offer us fragments of the same vast landscape. And the more you integrate those perspectives, the clearer the picture of what truly happens inside you becomes. In the end, the important thing is not to marry one theory, but to use these perspectives as tools. You can turn to Freud to interpret symbols and repressed emotions, to Eagleman to understand how your brain processes information without consulting you, and to Murphy to train your mind in a positive direction. Each lens gives you an angle, and together they form a kaleidoscope that reveals the richness of the subconscious. In this chapter, we've built a bridge between three thinkers, separated by eras and styles. What comes next will be a journey inward, into how those invisible roots form and sustain the way you think and feel. Because understanding the map is good, but walking it and recognizing its traces is what truly changes life. Chapter 3. How the invisible roots of your thoughts and emotions are formed. If you've ever tried to pull a plant up by its roots, you know that what you see on the surface is only a small part of what holds it in place. The stem may look thin, but beneath the ground there is a web of roots that reach deep and often stretch much farther than you would imagine. The same is true of your mind. Your visible thoughts, emotions, and decisions rest on invisible roots that your subconscious has cultivated for years, even since before you were capable of reasoning for yourself. Childhood, in this sense, is a decisive stage. Think of the first 6 or 7 years of your life. During that period, your mind functions almost like an open recorder, registering without filters everything you hear, see, and feel. You don't yet have the critical ability to question what others say about you or the world. If someone repeats that "you're clumsy," that seed falls on fertile ground and may grow into insecurity. If, on the other hand, you receive messages of trust and support, those seeds turn into self-confidence. Neuroscience has confirmed what intuition and psychology long suspected. In the first years of life, neural connections multiply at a dizzying speed. It's as if your brain were a young forest in full expansion, open to any seed that falls into it. And, like any forest, what is sown during that time will shape the landscape for years to come. But it's not only the words of others that have influence. Intense emotional experiences do as well. If, as a child, you associated school with ridicule, your subconscious may link learning with pain, even years later, even if you consciously want to overcome it. If instead you discovered that solving a problem brought satisfaction, your mind created a bond between effort and reward. Here's an important nuance. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish much between isolated events and patterns. If something happens just once but with strong emotional charge, it records it as a powerful signal. And if something happens repeatedly, even subtly, it consolidates it little by little. That's why a single accident can generate a lasting phobia, or a series of small disparaging remarks can accumulate into a limiting belief. But don't think these roots are unmovable. Just as a gardener can redesign a plot of land, you can work with your subconscious to transform what has grown there. Of course, it's not enough to cut the grass on the surface. You have to go to the level of the roots, that is, to the deep emotions and beliefs. That's why, when you find yourself reacting disproportionately, say with intense fear of public speaking, it isn't just about your current shyness, but about older roots that sustain that emotion. A story illustrates this phenomenon well. In 1905, French psychologist Alfred Binet, famous for creating the first intelligence tests, observed that some students considered slow improved notably when told they were intelligent and capable. There wasn't an immediate change in their abilities, but in the belief that underpinned their performance. That simple suggestion removed a negative root and planted a positive one, which in turn bore visible fruit in their behavior. Invisible roots affect not only how you perceive yourself, but also how you react to the world. Imagine a friend takes a long time to reply to your messages. If your inner roots were formed in an environment of abandonment or rejection, you'll interpret that silence as disinterest and feel anxious. But if you grew up in an environment of trust, you'll likely think they're just busy and not worry much. The same fact, two interpretations, two different emotions, all conditioned by subconscious roots. Moreover, the subconscious organizes these roots into networks, like paths that connect different points of the forest. For example, a memory of academic failure may connect with a feeling of shame, and that shame with a belief of, "I'm not enough." Suddenly it's no longer just a memory, but a system of roots influencing how you face new challenges. What's interesting is that these networks grow stronger each time you use them. Every time you think, "I can't," you are watering that root. Every time you dare and discover that you can, you are fertilizing another. That's why repetition is so powerful. Your subconscious learns through insistence. You may wonder, what about emotions? Well, emotions are like the water running through those roots. Without emotion, a thought leaves little trace. With emotion, it becomes a deep root. That's why you vividly remember the day that filled you with joy or the day that caused you pain, while thousands of neutral days fade from memory. Let me pause on a revealing example. In the 1970s, an experiment at Stanford University showed a group of children a puppet that repeated positive phrases about reading. Those who heard the phrases several times ended up showing greater enjoyment of reading than those who didn't. The surprising part wasn't just the result, but the discovery that even such an unusual source as a puppet could plant seeds in a child's subconscious. The effect depended less on logic and more on emotionally charged repetition. This brings us to an important conclusion. We all have invisible roots, some that support us and others that hold us back. Some push us forward and others restrain us without us knowing why. And although it isn't always easy to identify them, we can learn to observe our reactions as signals. The next time something provokes an intense emotion, fear, anger, enthusiasm, ask yourself what inner root is feeding it. It's not about blaming yourself, but about recognizing the underground map that guides your steps. Remember, you can't uproot a grown tree with a single pull, but you can start trimming branches, nourishing new roots, and with patience, redesigning your inner forest. That is the task we'll continue exploring in this book, learning to look beneath the surface, to understand how it was formed, and to discover how to transform it in your favor. What may surprise you most is that, although these invisible roots shape much of who you are, they are not your final destiny. They are only the starting point, and as you learn to work with them, they will cease to be invisible chains and become the foundations of freer, more conscious growth. Chapter 4. The Secret Language of the Subconscious: Symbols, Dreams, and Intuitions. Imagine for a moment that you wake up in a country where no one speaks your language. You ask something on the street, but the answers come back as gestures, looks, and incomprehensible words. You get frustrated until one day you discover that this seemingly strange language has its own order, meaning, and grammar. Something similar happens with your subconscious. It doesn't communicate in logical sentences, but in symbols, images, and sensations. And although they may seem like riddles at first, learning to decipher them opens the door to a fascinating dialogue with the deepest part of yourself. Symbols are the mother tongue of the subconscious. It's no coincidence that dreams are full of them. Freud said it well: dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. What your conscious mind represses or fails to express clearly, your subconscious translates into symbolic scenes. An emotional conflict may appear as a labyrinth, a hidden desire may disguise itself as a journey, or a fear may take the shape of a shadow chasing you. It is not literal. It is poetry in motion. Think of myths and universal legends: the dragon that must be slain, the dark cave that hides a treasure, the hero who must pass through impossible trials. All of these stories are, in reality, symbolic maps of what happens inside us. The subconscious understands and uses them because it operates in the same language. That's why, when you dream of flying, it doesn't mean your body wants to take off. It means there's a yearning for freedom that hasn't found space in your daily life. Beyond nighttime dreams, the subconscious also expresses itself through intuitions. That gut feeling that makes you slow down just before a car suddenly appears, that sense that someone isn't being fully honest, that certainty you must make a decision even though you can't explain why. Intuition is the way your deeper mind, which processes far more information than you consciously perceive, sends you messages in the form of hunches. Don't confuse intuition with fortune-telling. It isn't magic, but rather your subconscious's ability to analyze patterns invisible to you. Your brain picks up micro-gestures, tones of voice, details in the environment that your conscious mind misses, but together they form a clear impression. That impression emerges as an inner voice, which, once you learn to listen to it, can guide you with remarkable accuracy. It's worth recalling a historic episode. During World War II, British mathematician Alan Turing led the team trying to decipher the Nazis' enigma code. Although his method was logical and mathematical, Turing admitted that at crucial moments he relied on sudden intuitions about which combinations to try. He himself described them as subconscious leaps that he later confirmed with reason. Without those flashes, it's likely the code breaking would have taken much longer. Symbols, dreams, and intuitions thus form a triangle of subconscious communication. They are indirect languages, but not arbitrary ones. And while each person has their own personal symbolic dictionary, we also share a universal repertoire. Water often symbolizes emotions. The house represents one's inner life. The journey points to change and transformation. This explains why symbols tend to repeat with variations across even the most distant cultures. The challenge is to learn how to translate them. It's not about looking for a manual of fixed interpretations, but about developing sensitivity to what those symbols mean for you. If you dream of a dog, it may represent loyalty for someone who loves animals, or fear for someone who was bitten as a child. The key is connecting the symbol with your personal story and emotions. Your subconscious also uses this language while you're awake, through slips of the tongue, mistakes, or spontaneous mental images. That word you blurt out unintentionally which reveals what you were trying to hide, that song that gets stuck in your head as if carrying a message, that doodle you draw absent-mindedly while talking on the phone. These are small windows through which the symbolic world of your deep mind peeks out. The fascinating part is that you can also use this language actively. Visualization, for example, consists of sending positive symbols to the subconscious. When you vividly imagine a goal achieved, like giving a confident speech or crossing the finish line of a race, you are communicating with your mind in the language it understands. And if you repeat that image with emotion, your subconscious records it as a direction to follow. Something similar happens with the metaphors we use in daily life. When you say, "I feel a weight on my shoulders," you're not describing a literal physical fact, but an emotional burden. The subconscious understands the metaphor and translates it into real sensations. That's why working with new metaphors can free you from blockages. Telling yourself, "I feel light, as if I've put down a backpack," is not just wordplay. It's a symbolic command your deeper mind can act upon. Let me share a story that shows the power of the symbolic. In 1955, Milton Erickson, one of the great pioneers of therapeutic hypnosis, treated a young man paralyzed after an accident. Instead of focusing on telling him, "You can move," Erickson asked him to imagine in detail that he was lifting a balloon tied to his arm. Immersed in suggestion, the boy began to feel his arm rising slightly. That symbolic experience reactivated inner connections that logic had not been able to reach. Little by little, using symbols instead of commands, the young man regained mobility. This example teaches us something powerful. When we try to force the subconscious with cold reasoning, it resists or shuts down. But when we speak its language, dreams, symbols, intuitions, it responds with creativity and effectiveness. It's like trying to open a lock with the wrong key. No matter how hard you push, it won't open. But when you find the right key, the door opens effortlessly. The most inspiring part is that this secret language is always available. You don't need sophisticated equipment or complicated techniques, just attention, listening to your dreams, valuing your hunches, observing the symbols that appear in your life. That habit can become a silent compass, guiding you toward decisions more aligned with your true self. From now on, each time you have a strange dream, an inexplicable feeling, or a persistent image, instead of dismissing it as meaningless, ask yourself, "What message is my subconscious trying to give me?" You may discover that in those seemingly enigmatic signals, your deep mind is showing you a path your reason cannot yet see. Chapter 5. The Power of Suggestion. What you believe, you create. If you've ever seen someone hypnotized in a stage show, you may have been surprised to see them bark like a dog or walk stiffly like a robot, obeying commands they would normally reject. That scene, though it may look like a trick, reveals something profound. The subconscious is highly susceptible to suggestion. What is implanted in it with enough strength, clarity, and emotion tends to become experience. But you don't need a hypnotist with a pendulum for this to happen. All of us live under the influence of daily suggestions. Advertising knows this well. It doesn't sell a soft drink, but the feeling of freshness, friendship, or freedom associated with it. Every commercial is a seed thrown into the fertile soil of your subconscious, and the more often you hear or see it, the greater the chance it will take root. The same is true for the phrases we repeat without noticing. "I'm no good at this. Life is hard. All men are the same. This always happens to me." Each of these statements, repeated and felt, becomes an instruction. The subconscious, neither debating nor analyzing, simply obeys. And then situations begin to arise that confirm that belief, not because fate is against you, but because your mind filters reality to fit what it expects to find. The phenomenon is so powerful that it can even alter physiology. In medicine, we speak of the placebo effect, when a patient improves after taking a pill that contains no active substance. What heals is not the pill, but the belief that it is medicine. The body responds to suggestion with real changes. Pain diminishes, mood improves, the immune system strengthens. The flip side is the nocebo effect, when a negative expectation triggers harmful symptoms. Think about it. How many things you experience today are the fruit of old suggestions you accepted without questioning? Perhaps a teacher once told you that you were bad at math, and ever since, every number has seemed like an enemy. Perhaps a relative said, "No one in this family ever has luck in love," and you've carried that prophecy like an invisible seal. A classic study in psychology illustrates this force well. In 1968, researchers Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson conducted an experiment in a California elementary school. They told teachers that certain students had shown extraordinary intellectual potential on a test, though in reality, the names were chosen at random. At the end of the school year, those very students, ordinary in every respect, had significantly improved their performance. Why? Because the teacher's expectations and positive suggestions shaped the children's behavior and, through that influence, their actual abilities. The same happens with you. What others suggest about you, if you accept it, can become your reality. And even more importantly, what you suggest to yourself carries multiplied power. Every time you speak to yourself with conviction, you are programming your subconscious. The good news is that you can use this mechanism in your favor. The conscious repetition of positive affirmations, accompanied by emotion, can gradually replace old limiting suggestions. It's not about repeating empty phrases without feeling them, but about associating them with images and emotions that make your subconscious resonate. For example, it's not the same to mechanically say, "I have confidence in myself," as it is to close your eyes. Imagine a moment where you act with confidence and feel in your body the calm and strength of that moment. That symbolic experience imprints far more deeply. Suggestion is also strengthened in states of relaxation or in the transitions between waking and sleep. Just before falling asleep and upon waking, your conscious mind relaxes and the subconscious becomes more receptive. That's why many traditions recommend repeating positive phrases at those times. It's like speaking directly to the soil before planting a seed. Another fascinating aspect of suggestion is that it doesn't only affect individuals, but also groups. Ideologies, fashions, even rumors spread because they appeal to the collective subconscious. A historic example is the Salem witch hysteria of 1692. A group of young girls began showing convulsions and strange behaviors. The collective suggestion that they were possessed spread so quickly that an entire community ended up seeing witchcraft where there was likely fear, illness, or hysteria. Collective suggestion is capable of building entire social realities. You may think you're immune to these influences, but just look at your own life and you'll see otherwise. Why do certain songs instantly bring you back to a specific emotional state? Why does a uniform, a logo, or a religious symbol evoke immediate respect or rejection? Because all of them are suggestions that connect with deep associations in your subconscious. The key, then, is not to try to escape suggestion. It would be impossible, but to learn how to choose it. Just as you wouldn't allow anyone to plant whatever they wanted in your garden, you shouldn't let just any word, image, or belief be planted in your mind. Filtering suggestions, reinforcing the positive ones, and questioning the negative ones is an act of mental hygiene as essential as caring for your diet or your rest. Here's a small exercise I'd like to suggest. For 1 week, pay attention to the phrases you repeat most often, whether aloud or silently. Write them down at the end of the day. You'll be surprised to discover that many are automatic suggestions. Once you've recorded them, consciously choose to replace the limiting ones with those that empower you. If you usually say, "This is too hard," try instead, "It may be a challenge, but I'm capable of learning." The change may seem small, but your subconscious will notice the difference. Remember, the subconscious does not distinguish between reality and belief. It responds to what it receives with the same obedience that a seed responds to the soil. Plant words of confidence, images of success, and emotions of gratitude, and you'll see how, little by little, your experience begins to align with them. Suggestion is a powerful tool. It can be the chain that binds you to old limitations or the lever that opens new possibilities. It depends on what you allow in and what you choose to nurture. And now that you know that what you believe, you create, you hold in your hands the power to rewrite your story. Chapter 6. The Automatic Factory: Habits, Memory, and Effortless Decisions. If you had to consciously think through every movement of your day, how to brush your teeth, tie your shoes, or hold a glass of water, you'd be exhausted before noon. Fortunately, that's not the case. Most of your actions happen on autopilot, thanks to your subconscious mind's ability to turn behaviors into habits. This automatic factory is one of your mind's greatest gifts. It frees you from repetitive tasks, so your conscious attention can focus on what's new and challenging. A habit is nothing more than a neural pattern reinforced through repetition. At first, when you learn something new, it requires concentration. Think back to the first time you drove a car. You had to think about the clutch, the gear shift, the mirrors, the pedals. Everything seemed impossible to coordinate. Over time, those actions were absorbed into your subconscious, and today you can drive while holding a conversation with hardly any effort. The automatic factory took over, but the same ability that gives you efficiency can also work against you. Whatever becomes a habit, whether useful or harmful, gets stored in the subconscious and carried out with the same fidelity. Just as you can develop the habit of exercising every morning, you can also develop the habit of procrastinating, biting your nails, or reacting with complaints. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between positive or negative habits. Both take root if repeated enough. Memory is another gear in this automatic factory. Think of the incredible amount of information your mind stores without conscious effort. The route to work, your friends' faces, the lyrics of songs you haven't heard in years. All of it sits in circuits that activate at just the right moment. Without that subconscious memory, every day would be a fresh start from zero. Researchers often talk about implicit memory, the kind you use without thinking. For example, when you ride a bike after years, your body remembers how, even though your conscious mind can't explain each movement. That memory is less a database of facts than a library of skills, emotions, and response patterns. It's the silent archive your subconscious constantly draws on to guide your decisions. What's most surprising is that even your choices, which feel so free and conscious, are, to a great extent, decided before you notice them. Neuroscience studies have shown that seconds before a person declares having made a decision, brain activity patterns already reveal what they're going to choose. Your subconscious was at work before your conscious self came to its conclusion. This doesn't mean you're a robot without will, but that your conscious mind relies on a system that pre-processes options. Your deeper mind weighs past experiences, associated emotions, and probabilities of success or failure, and presents you with an inclination. Most of the time, you accept that inclination without realizing it. Sometimes, when you pay attention, you can override it, but the truth is, the first impulse comes from the subconscious. Let me share a lesser-known historical case. During World War I, psychologist Walter Dill Scott was hired to improve officer selection for the U.S. Army. He discovered that many soldiers made quick, accurate decisions under stress, not because they were more intelligent, but because they had well-trained mental habits. Their subconscious responded automatically and effectively under pressure. That finding was so influential, it laid the foundations for applied psychology in workplace and military performance. The lesson is clear. Training your subconscious with good habits and positive memories prepares you to respond wisely when life demands quick action. After all, you don't always have time to analyze every detail. Often you decide in seconds, and what you decide depends on what's already stored in your automatic factory. Habits also have an ally: emotions. Every time you carry out an action with emotional charge, it's imprinted more strongly. If you enjoy running because you associate it with freedom and energy, it will be easier to make it a habit. If you hate running because you associate it with pain and struggle, your subconscious will avoid it. That's why it's crucial to attach positive emotions to the behaviors you want to sustain. One powerful strategy is to take advantage of the so-called habit loop: cue, arrow, routine, arrow, reward. For example, if every time your alarm rings, cue, you go for a walk, routine, and then enjoy a refreshing shower, reward, your subconscious will begin to associate waking up early with a positive experience. Over time, the habit consolidates and stops requiring conscious willpower. However, when you're unaware of this cycle, you can get trapped in harmful habits. The cue may be boredom, the routine turning on the TV without thinking, and the reward a brief sense of distraction. The subconscious memorizes that loop and repeats it over and over. That's why, to change a habit, it's not enough to eliminate it. You must replace it with another that satisfies the same need but offers a different reward. Let me share a lesser-known but revealing experiment. In 1999, researchers at Duke University found that about 45% of the actions we perform every day are not conscious decisions, but automatic habits. That means nearly half of your life unfolds on autopilot. Imagine then how important it is to make sure your subconscious is running programs that benefit you instead of harming you. The good news is that the automatic factory is not beyond your reach. While you can't switch off autopilot, you can reprogram it. And the most effective way is through conscious repetition, emotional association, and smart substitution of habits. That way, your subconscious, instead of sabotaging you, becomes a motor working in your favor. Think of your mind as a workshop that never stops. Every repeated action is an instruction your inner machines memorize. You can't stop them from working, but you can decide what kind of products they make. If you introduce routines of learning, gratitude, or discipline, your factory will produce growth. If you introduce complaints, excuses, or harmful behaviors, it will produce limitations. In the end, it's not about fighting your subconscious, but teaching it what to manufacture. If you train it patiently, it becomes a tireless ally, propelling you forward without you having to spend conscious energy on every step. And once your habits, memory, and automatic decisions align with your goals, you'll discover that life flows with far less effort than you ever imagined. Chapter 7. When your mind works in your favor and when it sabotages you. Your subconscious is like a tireless assistant that works 24 hours a day to fulfill what it believes you want. The key lies in that last phrase, what it believes. Because if it has learned that your goal is to protect yourself from pain by avoiding risks, it will keep you in your comfort zone, even if that means holding back your dreams. And if it has learned that life is a place full of opportunities, then it will strive to open paths for you. Your mind can be your best ally or your worst saboteur, depending on the program it has installed. Imagine you are about to give an important presentation. Your conscious mind wants to do well, to shine, to project confidence. But your subconscious, loaded with memories of childhood ridicule or past failures, interprets the situation as a threat. Then it activates physical symptoms: sweating, trembling, shortness of breath. It isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to protect you from a supposed danger. The paradox is that this very protection ends up sabotaging your performance. Psychologists call this phenomenon cognitive dissonance. When what you want and what you deeply believe do not align, your mind enters into conflict. The subconscious, with its invisible roots, usually prevails because it acts more quickly and forcefully than the conscious will. Thus, you may plan to save money but end up spending compulsively, decide to go on a diet but fall into irresistible cravings, promise yourself calm but explode in anger. You are not weak or inconsistent. It is your subconscious executing a different program than the one your conscious mind desires. A historical example illustrates this game of self-sabotage. In 1929, polar explorer Richard Byrd spent months isolated at a station in Antarctica. In his diary, he wrote that despite having a clear plan to remain calm and disciplined, his mind began to sabotage him with obsessive thoughts and irrational fears. He acknowledged that it wasn't the cold that wore him down the most, but the traps of his own mind. His experience shows how, in extreme situations, the subconscious can become the toughest enemy if it is not properly managed. Of course, not everything is an obstacle. The other side is when your mind works in your favor. Think of the moments when you flowed effortlessly, when ideas came clearly, or when you acted with unexpected confidence. That happens when your subconscious and conscious mind work in the same direction. The autopilot not only prevents mistakes, but propels you towards success. An athlete who has trained thousands of hours does not need to calculate every move. Their subconscious executes complex plays with millimetric precision. A musician who has mastered their instrument does not analyze every note. Their fingers move guided by a deeply embedded program. In such situations, your subconscious does not sabotage you, but instead enhances your performance, freeing you from conscious overload. The question is, what makes the difference between help and sabotage? The answer lies in the beliefs and associations your subconscious has accumulated. If it associates public speaking with humiliation, it will sabotage you. If it associates it with recognition, it will support you. If it links effort with suffering, it will hold you back. If it links it with achievement, it will propel you forward. This is where the importance of reprogramming those beliefs comes into play. It's not about eliminating the subconscious or fighting against it, but about teaching it new associations. One technique used by psychologists consists of gradually exposing patients to the feared situation while pairing it with positive experiences. In this way, the subconscious replaces the old association fear with a new one confidence. It is also essential to observe the moments when your mind seems to work against you. Ask yourself, what positive intention might lie behind this reaction? Perhaps your procrastination is not simple laziness, but an attempt to protect you from failure. Maybe your anxiety is not a whim, but a miscalibrated alarm. By recognizing that intention, you can thank your subconscious for its attempt to help, while also showing it that there is a healthier way to take care of you. A curious scientific anecdote can give you perspective. In the 1990s, Japanese researchers studied patients with pollen allergies. They discovered that when these patients were shown images of flowers, even with no pollen present, some developed real symptoms: sneezing, itching, congestion. Their subconscious, convinced that there was danger, triggered the allergic reaction as a defense mechanism. This is an extreme example of how your mind can play tricks on you, believing it is protecting you. In the same way, your mind can generate improvement symptoms when it believes something benefits you. Remember the placebo effect. A single positive suggestion is enough for your body to activate internal healing resources. The same mechanism that sabotages you can also save you. It all depends on the information your subconscious receives and how it interprets it. That is why it is crucial to nurture your mind with experiences and messages that help it work in your favor. Every time you reinforce a positive image, every time you celebrate a small achievement, every time you practice gratitude, you are teaching your subconscious to associate life with confidence and well-being. And when a challenging situation arises, instead of sabotaging you, your inner assistant will be on your side. Don't forget something fundamental. Your subconscious has no sense of humor or time. If you constantly tell yourself, "I always fail," or "I'll never make it," it takes that as an order and acts accordingly. But if you repeat, "I move forward a little more every day," or "I am capable of learning," it will also take that as true and adjust itself. You decide which program to reinforce. Your mind is neither enemy nor friend by nature. It is a mirror of what you have recorded in it. It can sabotage you when it believes it must protect you, or it can drive you when it is aligned with you. The good news is that you can teach it to be your ally, not through struggle, but through patience, consistency, and new associations. And when both your conscious and subconscious minds row in the same direction, the strength you feel will be like having the wind at your back on your journey. Chapter 8. The Body as a Mirror of the Subconscious. Signals, Symptoms, and Healing. Your body speaks, although you rarely listen to it attentively. Every tension, every recurring pain, every strange symptom is, in many cases, a message from the subconscious trying to make itself noticed. Just as dreams reveal what your conscious mind does not process, the body reflects in its physical language what your deeper mind keeps in silence. It is no coincidence that when you worry excessively, your stomach hurts, or when you repress anger, your neck tightens. The body is a mirror, and in it is projected what you cannot express in any other way. As early as Freud's first studies on hysteria, he observed how emotional conflicts were transformed into physical symptoms: women who could not move an arm, men with chronic pain without any medical cause, young people with inexplicable fainting spells. What they discovered was that the unconscious mind found an outlet in the body. Today we call it somatization, and although modern medicine has advanced greatly, it is still surprising how unresolved emotions become embodied in muscles, organs, and systems. Contemporary psychology and neuroscience have confirmed that emotions are deeply linked to the body. When you feel fear, your subconscious activates the amygdala in the brain, which in turn sends signals to release adrenaline, increase heart rate, and tense the muscles. If that state is repeated over and over again, the body begins to get used to living on alert, and what was once a punctual response turns into a chronic condition. Insomnia, hypertension, digestive problems. The subconscious does not only produce negative symptoms, it can also activate healing processes. The aforementioned placebo effect shows that belief in improvement triggers real biological reactions: release of endorphins, activation of the immune system, reduction of pain. The mind, convinced that something heals, sets in motion the body's mechanisms to make it happen. The same occurs with the nocebo effect, but in the opposite direction. Believing that something will harm you can generate symptoms even when no harmful agent is present. A historical example clearly shows this power. In 1957, an American doctor named Philip West treated a patient with terminal cancer. He administered an experimental drug that was believed to be promising, and the man's tumor rapidly shrank. Weeks later, it was discovered that the drug was not effective, and the tumor grew again. When the doctor, in a gesture of compassion, injected the patient with water while telling him it was a new version of the drug, the tumor shrank again. Finally, when the patient learned that everything had been a placebo, he died shortly after. His body had faithfully responded to the beliefs of his subconscious. Beyond these extreme cases, daily life is full of subtle examples. Have you ever felt a headache disappear after resolving an unresolved conflict? Or noticed that a cold lingered when you were stressed but subsided once you relaxed? The subconscious influences your physiology much more than we usually admit. Of course, this does not mean denying that real physical causes exist. Not every symptom comes from the mind, but even in illnesses with clear organic causes, the subconscious state can worsen or alleviate the condition. Patients who maintain positive attitudes and trust in their recovery often show better outcomes than those who sink into pessimism. It is not magic, it is biology guided by belief. Your body also reflects the subconscious through posture and gestures. Someone who carries guilt often hunches their shoulders. Someone who lives in fear tends to contract the chest. Someone who is open to life stands upright with expansive breathing. These are non-verbal signals that communicate what is happening deep inside. If you learn to observe your own body, you will discover valuable messages about what your subconscious is trying to tell you. There are therapeutic methods that make use of this connection. Bioenergetics, for example, works with body exercises to release trapped emotions. Other approaches use conscious breathing to access emotional memories. The principle is the same. The body holds records of the subconscious, and by moving it, paths of healing are opened. A clinical anecdote from psychiatrist Alexander Lowen, founder of bioenergetics, illustrates this point. He describes the case of a woman with persistent pain in her lower back. After several sessions of exercises that included softly stamping her feet on the ground and emitting guttural sounds, the patient broke into tears and recalled childhood abuse she had kept hidden for decades. After releasing that emotion, the pain noticeably decreased. The physical symptom was, in part, the echo of an unresolved subconscious memory. What is inspiring is that the relationship also works positively. When you cultivate emotional states of gratitude, joy, or serenity, your body responds with muscle relaxation, improved circulation, and hormonal balance. It is not about denying problems, but about feeding your subconscious with emotions that favor health. You can start with something as simple as observing your breathing. Each time you inhale deeply and exhale calmly, you're telling your subconscious, "I am safe, I can relax." Little by little, your body stops living in constant alert and opens to balance. This simple gesture is a bridge between your conscious will and your automatic factory. Remember, the body is the stage where the subconscious writes what it cannot express in words. Listening to it attentively is a form of inner dialogue. If a symptom appears repeatedly, instead of fighting against it as if it were an enemy, you can ask yourself, what message is my subconscious trying to give me? You may discover that behind that persistent pain lies an ignored emotion, a postponed decision, or a truth you do not dare to face. Your body does not lie. It faithfully reflects what happens in your inner world. Learning to read it is learning to know yourself. And when you manage to align mind and body, not only do the symptoms decrease, but a sense of integration and fulfillment arises that is hardly achievable in any other way. Chapter 9. Creativity Incognito. How ideas are born without you noticing. Most people believe that creativity happens the moment someone sits in front of a blank page and starts forcing themselves to come up with ideas. But reality is different. The best insights often appear when you're not looking for anything, when you're walking, taking a shower, or about to fall asleep. That unexpected spark comes from the subconscious, which works in the shadows, combining information and experiences without you realizing it. Creativity is, to a large extent, a subconscious process. Your deeper mind stores thousands of data points, images, and memories that seem forgotten. Then, silently, it begins to mix them in new ways. The result is a sudden aha moment, an intuition that seems to appear out of nowhere. In truth, your subconscious had been working backstage all along. A classic example is that of mathematician Henri Poincaré, who said that many of his most brilliant solutions came to him while boarding a bus or walking down the street, never while sitting at his desk. He described it as a sudden illumination that only arrived after letting the problem rest. Consciousness analyzes, but it is the subconscious that connects. This phenomenon is so common, it has a name: creative incubation. It works like this. You pose a problem, work on it for a while, then set it aside and do something else. During that break, your subconscious keeps processing. When you least expect it, the solution emerges with clarity. This is why a good idea so often appears in the shower or just before sleep, when your conscious mind is relaxed and not interfering. David Eagleman explains it in neuroscientific terms. The brain is made up of multiple systems working in parallel. While your conscious part focuses attention on one task, other neural networks remain active, exploring combinations. The subconscious is like a nighttime laboratory that never rests, even when you believe you've abandoned the project. Creativity is not limited to geniuses in science or art. It is present in everyday life. When you improvise a recipe with what you have in the fridge, when you find an unexpected way to solve a problem at work, when you invent a game to entertain a child. Each of those solutions arises from the same mechanism, your subconscious connecting seemingly unrelated pieces. A story about Russian composer Dmitri Shostakovich illustrates this well. During the years of Soviet censorship, he had to compose works that pleased the regime without abandoning his personal style. According to accounts, many of his most ingenious ideas emerged while playing chess games with friends. It wasn't wasted time, but a space in which his subconscious, freed from conscious pressure, found original musical turns that he later embodied in his works. The subconscious is especially skilled at detecting patterns. That is where much of creativity lies, seeing connections where others see only fragments. A scientist looks at scattered data and suddenly understands the law that unites them. A painter looks at splashes of color and perceives a hidden figure. An entrepreneur observes everyday needs and conceives an innovative product. The secret is not in conscious effort, but in preparing the ground and allowing the subconscious to do its work. This explains why creativity flourishes in contexts of play, relaxation, and curiosity. When you pressure yourself with phrases like, "I must have an idea now," your conscious mind blocks. In contrast, when you allow yourself to explore without expectations, the subconscious acts freely. It's like a river. The more you try to control it, the more it resists. The more you let it flow, the greater the chance it will carry something valuable to the surface. The relationship between sleep and creativity is another fascinating area. Numerous discoveries have emerged in that in-between state of wakefulness and rest. We already mentioned Kekulé and his vision of the snake that led him to discover the structure of benzene. But there are more cases. Inventor Elias Howe dreamed of cannibals attacking him with spears pierced at the tip, and upon waking, he understood how to design the needle of the sewing machine. The subconscious uses dream symbols to shape creative solutions that the logical mind cannot find. This brings us to a key conclusion. Creativity is not a mysterious gift reserved for a few, but an inherent capacity of the human subconscious, We can all access it if we learn to cultivate the right conditions. How to do this? First, by feeding the subconscious with diverse information. The more experiences, readings, and learnings you accumulate, the more material it will have to combine. Second, by allowing periods of rest and disconnection. Do not underestimate the power of a walk, a nap, or some leisure time. Third, by practicing curious observation, looking at things from different angles, asking, "What if?" Let me tell you about a little-known experiment. In 2009, researchers at the University of Amsterdam asked a group of people to choose the best car among several models with different characteristics. One group had to decide immediately, another after detailed analysis, and a third after being distracted with another task. The group that got distracted, letting the subconscious work, made more accurate decisions than the others. The study suggests that in complex problems, the deeper mind processes better than conscious deliberation. The message is clear: do not underestimate your subconscious in your creative process. It is not a mere passive archive, but a motor that generates original combinations, detects invisible patterns, and offers unexpected solutions. When inspiration surprises you in the shower, on a walk, or at the edge of sleep, remember, it was not a stroke of luck. It was your subconscious working in silence. The spark did not come from nowhere, but from a hidden workshop that is always on. And the next time you face a difficult problem, don't punish yourself for not finding the answer immediately. Do your part, feed yourself with information, and then let go. Allow your deeper mind to work its magic. After all, creativity incognito is nothing more than your subconscious showing you what it is capable of when you trust it. Chapter 10. Reprogramming your subconscious mind. Practical techniques for change. Knowing that your subconscious influences almost everything you do is powerful, but understanding it is not enough. The key is learning how to reprogram it. Because the truth is, although much of your programming was recorded in childhood or through past experiences, you are not doomed to repeat it forever. Your mind is plastic, moldable, capable of transforming with new instructions. What once limited, you can become a driving force if you know how to speak to it in its own language. The first step is conscious awareness. You cannot change what you ignore. That is why observing your automatic thoughts and emotional reactions is essential. Every time you say, "I can't," "This will go badly," or "This always ends in disaster," stop and notice. That is a programmed belief, not an absolute truth. Recognizing the program is like turning on the light in a dark room. It doesn't clean the mess, but it allows you to begin organizing it. One of the best-known techniques is positive affirmation, but be careful. It is not about repeating empty phrases, but about doing it with images and emotions. If you say, "I am successful," but deep down feel the opposite, your subconscious will reject it. The key is to create believable phrases that open the door to change. Every day, I move forward a little more. I am learning to feel secure. I give myself permission to prosper. Repeated with conviction, accompanied by sensations and visualizations, these phrases begin to plant new roots. Creative visualization is another powerful tool. The subconscious responds to vivid images as strongly as to reality. If you close your eyes and imagine in detail, speaking in public with confidence, the tone of your voice, the audience's smile, the calm in your body, your deeper mind records that experience as a real rehearsal. The more often you repeat it, the more familiar it becomes. And what is familiar to the subconscious is synonymous with safe. Autosuggestion in relaxed states enhances these methods even more. Just before falling asleep and upon waking, your brain is in alpha and theta waves, moments when critical consciousness relaxes. Taking advantage of those minutes to repeat affirmations, listen to inspiring audios, or visualize goals multiplies the effect. It's like opening the door directly to the control room of the subconscious. You can also use the power of writing. Writing phrases in a notebook, drafting letters to yourself, or writing down your goals is another way to reinforce new instructions. Writing involves not only thought, but also the body, and it turns the abstract into the concrete. Let me share an anecdote about Émile Coué, a French pharmacist from the early 20th century. He discovered that when dispensing medicines, if he added phrases such as, "This treatment will help you feel better," patients recovered more quickly. Coué developed a method of autosuggestion based on repeating a simple phrase. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Thousands of people claim to have changed habits, overcome fears, and even improved their health. It may sound naive, but the key was daily repetition, with emotion, until the subconscious accepted it as reality. Another useful technique is gradual exposure. If your subconscious associates a situation with danger, you can re-educate it by facing that situation little by little in safe conditions and with positive emotions. For example, if you fear public speaking, you can start by talking in front of a trusted friend, then to a small group, and so on progressively. Each positive experience replaces the old belief, "It's dangerous," with the new one, "I am capable." We cannot forget the role of gratitude and positive emotion. When you express genuine gratitude, you activate brain circuits that associate life with abundance and well-being. The subconscious learns more quickly through strong emotions, and gratitude is one of the most powerful. That is why practicing it daily, such as writing down 3 things you are grateful for before going to bed, is a subtle yet constant way of reprogramming your mind. There are also deeper methods, such as therapeutic hypnosis, where a professional guides a person into a state of deep relaxation to access subconscious memories, emotions, and beliefs. It is not mind control, as is often thought, but a way of opening the communication channel with that part of you that usually hides behind the barrier of critical consciousness. A study from Stanford University showed that patients with severe burns who received hypnosis to manage pain reported less suffering and required fewer painkillers. Their subconscious, convinced that the pain was diminishing, modulated real perception. This demonstrates that reprogramming affects not only emotions, but also physiological processes. The environment is also crucial. Your subconscious absorbs what you repeat and what surrounds you. If you spend the day listening to complaints, criticism, and negative news, that will be the raw material your deeper mind stores. If you surround yourself with positive stimuli, inspiring books, and people who lift you up, you will be planting different seeds. Reprogramming is not only about what you do inwardly, but also about what you allow in from the outside. Remember that change requires patience and consistency. Just as you did not learn to walk in a day, you will not reprogram your subconscious overnight. Each repetition is a new stroke on the map of your mind. At first, it may seem useless, but over time the new pathways strengthen and the old ones weaken. Your subconscious is moldable. With heartfelt affirmations, vivid visualizations, suggestions in relaxed states, conscious writing, gratitude, gradual exposure, and a nurturing environment, you can teach it new paths. It is not about fighting the old, but about planting the new until it grows strong enough to replace it. The great news is that you don't need to wait for circumstances to change. You can start today from within, planting new beliefs. And little by little, you will discover that your outer life adjusts to that new programming as a faithful reflection of your inner transformation. Chapter 11. Living in Alliance with Your Subconscious. Balance between reason and intuition. Imagine that within you live two navigators. One is meticulous. He calculates coordinates, measures distances, analyzes risks. This is your conscious reason. The other observes the sky, feels the wind, is guided by intuition and the silent accumulation of experience. This is your subconscious. When both work together, the ship of your life moves forward smoothly. When they clash, however, you feel divided, confused, and drained. The challenge is not to silence one or let the other dominate, but to build an alliance between the two. Your conscious reason has an irreplaceable role. Thanks to it, you plan, evaluate alternatives, correct mistakes, and learn deliberately. However, it is slow and limited. It can only handle a small amount of information at once. Your subconscious, on the other hand, processes thousands of stimuli per second, recognizes invisible patterns, and makes quick decisions based on your entire history. But it lacks the logic that organizes and questions. Only when the two are integrated does a powerful balance emerge. A simple example can be found in driving. At first, your reason pays attention to every detail: the clutch, the gear, the mirrors. Over time, your subconscious takes control of the basic movements, freeing your reason to anticipate situations or handle the unexpected. If either one were missing, driving would be impossible. Either you would be overwhelmed by every micro-action, or you would react without the ability to foresee. The same occurs in daily life. If you only follow reason, you risk paralyzing yourself by analyzing endless possibilities. If you only follow intuition, you may act impulsively without measuring consequences. True wisdom lies in letting your reason draw the map while your subconscious reads the signs along the way. Intuition, often dismissed as irrational, is in reality the voice of your subconscious delivering conclusions based on millions of data points your consciousness cannot process. It is not magic, but synthesis. An experienced doctor who feels something is wrong in a patient, an investor who senses that a project is unreliable, a parent who perceives that their child needs attention. All are using this inner compass. Let me share a case that reflects this balance. During World War II, British pilot John Boyd Orr recounted that, in the middle of aerial combat, he would sometimes turn his plane sharply without knowing why. Seconds later, an enemy projectile would pass right through where he would have been. He said, "My instinct saved me." In truth, his subconscious had detected minimal signals, a flash, a change in the enemy engine's sound, that his reason had not processed in time. That alliance between intuition and action was what allowed him to survive. This does not mean that intuition is always infallible. It can be biased by fears, prejudices, or limiting beliefs. That is why reason acts as the filter that evaluates whether what you feel has a foundation. The key is to listen to both voices and allow them to dialogue. Ask yourself, what is my intuition telling me? What objective data supports or contradicts it? This inner conversation prevents both rigidity and impulsiveness. There are practices that strengthen this alliance. One is meditation, which calms the conscious mind and allows the voice of the subconscious to become more audible. Another is journaling or reflective writing, where you note what you feel without censorship and then analyze it logically. This way, both parts participate. Intuition speaks first, then reason intervenes. It also helps to trust incubation processes. If you face an important decision, research, analyze, list pros and cons, but then rest. Let your subconscious process in silence. Many times, clarity appears when you wake up or at an unexpected moment. It was not chance, but the result of that silent collaboration. Another way to cultivate balance is mindfulness practice. When you live in haste and distraction, Intuition gets buried under mental noise. By paying attention to the present, your breathing, what you observe, your sensations, your subconscious has room to send you clearer signals. At the same time, reason benefits from a calmer mind to analyze objectively. Think of your life as an orchestra. Reason is the conductor who sets the rhythm, but intuition is the music flowing from the instruments. If you only listen to the conductor, everything becomes rigid. If you only let the musicians play without guidance, it can turn into chaos. Harmony arises when both are coordinated. A scientific anecdote supports this vision. In 2004, researchers at the University of Iowa studied people playing a card game where some decks were advantageous and others not. Before participants could consciously explain which decks were better, their bodies were already reacting with micro-sweating when touching the bad ones. The subconscious was detecting invisible patterns and sending physical signals. When the players learned to listen to those sensations and then confirm them with reason, they began to win. The alliance was the key. In daily life, you can do the same. Pay attention to subtle signals from your body and intuition, then confirm them with facts and analysis. This way, you avoid being carried away by impulses alone or trapped in an excess of logic. The goal is not to choose between reason and subconscious, but to integrate them. When you plan a project, use your logic to organize it, and your intuition to give it direction. When you face a personal dilemma, listen to what you feel and then validate it with facts. And when in doubt, remember that within you are two navigators who, if they agree, can take you further than you ever imagined. Living in alliance with your subconscious means trusting that you are neither just a rational being nor just an instinctive one. You are the sum of both. And when you manage to let reason and intuition join hands, your life gains a clarity and a strength that neither side could achieve alone. Chapter 12. Your Greatest Ally. Integrating Consciousness and the Subconscious to Transform Your Life. At this point, you no longer see your subconscious as a dark and inaccessible territory, but as a vital force that has always been with you, shaping the way you think, feel, and act. You've learned that it holds invisible roots, that it expresses itself through symbols and dreams, that it can sabotage you or propel you, that it influences your body and your creativity, and that it can be reprogrammed with patience and practice. Now comes the next step, integrating it into your daily life as a conscious ally. To integrate means to stop fighting against your deeper mind and begin working with it. Think of the relationship between two teammates. At first, they may distrust each other, but once they learn to coordinate, they achieve extraordinary results. The same happens with your conscious and subconscious mind. Consciousness provides direction, goals, and values. The subconscious provides energy, automatisms, and creativity. When they align, your life flows with unstoppable strength. The first element of this integration is inner coherence. If you say you want to prosper, but deep down you believe that money corrupts, your subconscious will block your attempts. If you claim that you want to love, but carry the belief that everyone ends up failing, you will sabotage your relationships. To integrate means to examine those deep beliefs and replace them with others that support your purpose. It's not about deceiving yourself, but about re-educating your mind so that your desires and convictions walk in the same direction. The second element is trust in your inner voice. Many times, your intuition gives you signals that your reason later confirms with facts. Learning to listen to that compass and combine it with conscious analysis is essential for living with security and creativity. Integration is not about choosing between reason or intuition, but about knowing when to give more space to each one. The third element is consistent practice. Your subconscious does not change with a single declaration of good intentions. It needs repetition, emotion, and time. Every positive visualization, every heartfelt affirmation, every act of gratitude, every healthy habit is a brick in the construction of your new programming. And the wonderful thing is that once installed, your subconscious keeps working on its own, multiplying the effect. Integration also requires caring for your environment. What you listen to, read, watch, and repeat are seeds that enter your deeper mind. If you want your subconscious to be your ally, feed it with stimuli that strengthen your confidence, your creativity, and your well-being. You can't control everything you receive, but you can choose what you keep. Let me share a final story that symbolizes this integration. In 1938, Hungarian doctor Hans Selye, a pioneer in the study of stress, observed that some lab rats became gravely ill when subjected to hostile environments, while others, in similar conditions but with an enriched environment, showed surprising resilience. Selye realized that it wasn't just the body that determined health, but the interaction between mind, emotions, and environment. That discovery gave rise to the concept of stress as we understand it today, and revealed that inner balance is as decisive as any external factor. Your life works in the same way. What happens in your subconscious mind, combined with what you consciously choose and the environment you live in, determines your ability to resist, grow, and transform. When you accept your subconscious as an ally, you begin to notice subtle changes, calmer reactions, more consistent habits, more creative ideas, healthier relationships. You no longer need to force every step because your inner assistant works in sync with you. It doesn't mean everything is easy or perfect, but it does mean you have a powerful ally that perhaps once worked against you. Ultimately, integrating consciousness and the subconscious is an act of reconciliation with yourself. It means accepting that you are not only what you think rationally, nor only what you feel automatically, but the union of both. It means recognizing your shadows as well as your light, your limits as well as your potential, your fears as well as your dreams. And most importantly, it means assuming the power of being a co-creator of your experience. You are not a victim of old programs, nor a passive spectator of your mind. You are someone capable of choosing which seeds to plant, which symbols to nurture, which habits to cultivate. Your subconscious is not a hidden enemy, but fertile ground that, if cared for, will yield abundant fruits. So, every time you look within, remember, there lives an immense force that can either sustain you or hold you back, depending on how you nourish it. And every time you look in the mirror, remember that your body, your gestures, and your entire life reflect that silent alliance. This book ends here, but your journey is just beginning. From now on, you hold in your hands the possibility of making your subconscious mind not a cage, but a wing, not a chain, but a key. If you choose to plant with intention, patience, and love, you will discover that your subconscious, far from being a fearful mystery, is your greatest ally in the adventure of transforming your life. You have listened to Your Greatest Ally, The Subconscious Mind, a work created by Oscar Gonzalez and produced by Biblio Studio. Thank you for joining us on this journey.